There's a chilling shift that occurs when a narcissist realizes that their usual weapons of manipulation, intimidation, and emotional terrorism have lost their power over you. When they see that you've developed what Carl Jung would recognize as genuine psychological fortitude, the ability to maintain your center regardless of their attacks, something profound and disturbing happens in their psyche. They don't simply intensify their obvious tactics or become more transparently abusive. Instead, they retreat into the shadows and begin what can only be described as a campaign of silent destruction, a methodical dismantling of your life that operates beneath the radar of conscious awareness, designed to slowly erode your strength without you even realizing what's happening. If you've ever felt like something was systematically going wrong in your life after standing up to a narcissist, if you've experienced a series of seemingly unrelated problems, setbacks, or relationship difficulties that felt too coordinated to be coincidental, then you need to understand the psychology of covert warfare that emerges when a narcissist can no longer break you openly. Hit that like button if you're ready to explore this dark territory of human psychology, and make sure to subscribe with notifications on because we're about to examine the most insidious form of narcissistic abuse, the kind that operates in the shadows, leaving no obvious fingerprints while systematically undermining everything you've built. The transition to silent destruction represents a fundamental shift in the narcissist's psychological strategy. Jung understood that when the ego's direct approaches fail, it often retreats into what he called indirect influence through the shadow, operating through unconscious channels, hidden motivations, and covert actions that bypass conscious defenses. Your strength has forced the narcissist to acknowledge, at least unconsciously, that they cannot defeat you in open psychological warfare. So they adapt, shifting from the role of obvious aggressor to invisible saboteur. This silent destruction is infinitely more dangerous than overt abuse because it's designed to make you doubt your own perceptions, question your own sanity, and wonder if you're paranoid for sensing patterns that seem too subtle to be intentional. The narcissist understands that your strength comes partly from your ability to identify and respond to obvious threats. So they remove the obvious element, creating a campaign of destruction that operates just below the threshold of clear recognition. The first manifestation of this silent warfare is what I call relationship poisoning through strategic confidences. The narcissist doesn't openly badmouth you to your friends, family, or colleagues. Instead, they become a confidant, a trusted advisor, someone who expresses deep concern for your well-being. They share carefully selected information about your past struggles, your vulnerabilities, or your private confessions, but they frame this sharing as worry rather than gossip, as care rather than betrayal. To your sister, they might express concern about your stress levels, mentioning specific details about your anxiety that you shared in confidence, framing it as worry that you might be heading for a breakdown. To your best friend, they might share their observation that you seem to be isolating lately, offering examples of times you declined social invitations, positioning themselves as someone who's trying to understand how to help you. To your colleague, they might mention their concern about your work-life balance, citing specific instances of your fatigue or frustration that you thought were private. Jung would recognize this as a sophisticated form of what he called shadow projection through triangulation, using third parties to carry and spread their negative assessments of you while maintaining the appearance of loving concern. The narcissist doesn't need to convince these people that you're bad. They just need to plant seeds of doubt, create subtle concerns, establish themselves as a reliable source of information about your inner state. What makes this relationship poisoning so effective is its gradual nature. No single conversation seems particularly damaging. No individual revelation appears intentionally malicious. But over time, these strategic confidences create a network of people who have been subtly conditioned to see you through the lens of the narcissist's concerns. Your strength begins to be interpreted as defensiveness. Your boundaries become evidence of your difficulty with relationships. Your independence gets reframed as isolation. The second form of silent destruction is what I call opportunity sabotage through systemic undermining. This involves the narcissist's strategic interference with your professional advancement, creative projects, or personal goals. But this interference doesn't look like obvious competition or direct opposition. Instead, It manifests as a series of small miscommunications, missed connections, and unfortunate timing that consistently works against your interests. They might forget to pass along important messages about job opportunities, but they'll frame this as an honest mistake rather than intentional sabotage. They might accidentally double-book themselves when you need their support for a crucial presentation, expressing genuine regret while leaving you without the help you were counting on. They might share information about your projects or goals with people who then pursue similar opportunities, claiming they thought you wouldn't mind the company or competition. Jung would understand this as the operation of what he called the autonomous complex, a psychological structure that operates independently of conscious intention, pursuing its destructive agenda through what appears to be unconscious oversight or innocent mistake. The narcissist may not even be fully conscious of their pattern of undermining your opportunities, but the pattern persists with remarkable consistency. This systemic undermining is particularly devastating because it attacks your sense of efficacy and competence. When opportunities consistently fall through due to circumstances that seem beyond anyone's control, when your projects face unexpected obstacles that appear to be just bad luck, when your goals are mysteriously thwarted by a series of unfortunate coincidences, you begin to doubt your own capabilities rather than recognizing the pattern of sabotage. The third manifestation of silent destruction is what I call emotional terrorism through micro-invalidations. This involves a constant stream of tiny dismissals, subtle criticisms, and barely perceptible put-downs that are individually too small to address, but collectively create an atmosphere of chronic invalidation. The narcissist becomes a master of the raised eyebrow, the subtle sigh, the moment of silence that suggests disagreement, the faint smile that indicates condescension. When you share good news, their response is just slightly less enthusiastic than appropriate. When you express an opinion, they offer a look that suggests they find your perspective naive or uninformed. When you make a mistake, their reaction carries just a hint of, "I'm not surprised," that makes you feel foolish. When you set a boundary, they comply with a tone that suggests you're being unreasonable or overly sensitive. Jung would recognize this as a form of what he called psychological erosion through persistent shadow projection, the continuous attribution of negative qualities to another person through nonverbal communication and subtle behavioral cues. The narcissist is constantly communicating their assessment that you're inadequate, irrational, or inferior, but they're doing so in ways that are too subtle to confront directly. This emotional terrorism is designed to create what Jung called chronic self-doubt, a persistent questioning of your own perceptions, decisions, and worth that occurs below the level of conscious awareness. You don't realize you're being systematically invalidated. You just notice that you feel less confident, less sure of yourself, less trusting of your own judgment when you're around them. The fourth form of silent destruction is what I call isolation engineering through social manipulation. Rather than obviously trying to separate you from your support network, the narcissist works to subtly alter the dynamics of your relationships in ways that naturally create distance between you and the people who matter to you. They might consistently create scheduling conflicts that prevent you from attending important social gatherings, but always with legitimate-seeming reasons. They might develop sudden emotional crises that require your attention precisely when you have plans with friends or family. They might express hurt feelings when you choose to spend time with others, not forbidding you from these relationships, but making you feel guilty for maintaining them. More subtly, they might gradually change the atmosphere in your social circle by introducing drama, creating tensions between group members, or shifting the focus of gatherings in ways that make you feel uncomfortable or unwelcome. They become the center of attention through their problems, their needs, their crises, gradually making social events revolve around managing their emotional state rather than enjoying genuine connection. Jung would understand this as a form of what he called environmental manipulation through unconscious influence, changing the psychological atmosphere of your social environment in ways that naturally discourage healthy relationships and authentic connection. The narcissist doesn't directly forbid you from maintaining your friendships. They just make it increasingly difficult and emotionally costly to do so. The fifth manifestation of silent destruction is what I call reality distortion through gaslighting by proxy. This involves recruiting others to unknowingly participate in undermining your sense of reality. The narcissist shares their version of events with mutual friends, family members, or colleagues, not as obvious complaints but as confused attempts to understand what happened. They might tell your mother that they're worried because you seem to remember conversations differently than they do, expressing concern about your stress levels affecting your memory. They might mention to your best friend that you've been misinterpreting their actions lately, wondering if you're going through something that's affecting your perception. They might suggest to your colleague that you seem to be taking things personally that weren't meant that way. These conversations plant seeds that grow into a network of people who have been subtly conditioned to question your version of events. When you try to explain what's really happening, when you attempt to share your experience of the narcissist's behavior, these people respond with gentle skepticism rather than validation. They've been primed to see you as the one with the distorted perspective. Jung would recognize this as an extremely sophisticated form of what he called collective shadow projection, using group dynamics to validate false narratives and create shared reality distortions. The narcissist doesn't need to convince everyone that you're wrong. They just need to create enough doubt about your perceptions that your truth-telling is dismissed as subjective interpretation rather than accurate reporting. The sixth form of silent destruction is what I call psychological exhaustion through chronic hypervigilance creation. The narcissist creates an environment where you can never fully relax, never completely let your guard down, never trust that things are as peaceful as they appear. They maintain a subtle level of tension through unpredictable mood shifts, cryptic comments, and behaviors that keep you constantly scanning for threats. They might make vague references to problems they're not ready to discuss, creating anxiety about unknown issues. They might exhibit subtle signs of anger or disapproval without explaining what's wrong, forcing you to walk on eggshells trying to avoid triggering whatever is bothering them. They might create an atmosphere of impending crisis through their tone, their body language, their mysterious phone calls, or private conversations. Jung would understand this as the creation of what he called chronic activation of the survival complex, keeping your nervous system in a constant state of low-level alert that gradually depletes your psychological resources. This chronic hypervigilance doesn't just exhaust you, it makes you more susceptible to their other forms of manipulation, because exhaustion impairs judgment, emotional regulation, and the ability to maintain clear boundaries. The seventh and perhaps most insidious form of silent destruction is what I call identity erosion through selective reinforcement withdrawal. The narcissist gradually stops acknowledging the aspects of your personality, achievements, or character that make you feel confident and strong. They don't criticize these qualities directly. They simply cease to see them, mention them, or respond to them. If you're known for your intelligence, they stop engaging with your ideas or insights. If you're proud of your creativity, they become indifferent to your artistic expressions. If you value your kindness, they stop acknowledging your compassionate actions. If you take pride in your independence, they cease to notice your self-sufficient accomplishments. This selective attention gradually trains you to question whether these positive qualities are real or significant. Without regular acknowledgement and reflection from someone important to you, these aspects of your identity begin to feel less central, less valuable, less like authentic parts of who you are. Jung would recognize this as a form of what he called identity starvation through selective mirroring withdrawal, removing the psychological reflection that helps maintain healthy self-concept. The narcissist becomes a mirror that only reflects your weaknesses, your mistakes, your inadequacies, while rendering your strengths invisible. Understanding these patterns of silent destruction doesn't mean becoming paranoid or suspicious of everyone around you. It means developing what Jung would call conscious discernment, the ability to recognize subtle patterns of undermining behavior while maintaining your capacity for trust and openness with people who have earned it through consistent, supportive actions over time. The narcissist's retreat into silent destruction is actually an admission of your strength. They've been forced to acknowledge, at least unconsciously, that they cannot break you through direct confrontation. Their shift to covert warfare is evidence that your psychological fortitude has grown beyond their ability to destroy through obvious means. Your defense against silent destruction isn't hypervigilance or paranoia. It's continued commitment to your own growth, your own truth, and your own authentic relationships. It's maintaining connection with people who see and celebrate your full self, who validate your perceptions, and who support your journey toward greater wholeness. The path forward involves what Jung called conscious integration of shadow awareness, recognizing that this level of covert manipulation exists without allowing that recognition to poison your capacity for genuine trust and authentic connection. It means becoming more discerning about who earns access to your inner world while remaining open to real intimacy with people who demonstrate consistent integrity. Take time to reflect on patterns you may have noticed in your own life, and share in the comments which form of silent destruction resonated most with your experience. Remember to subscribe for more insights into protecting your psychological sovereignty while maintaining your capacity for authentic relationship. Your strength is real, your perceptions are valid, and your commitment to truth and growth is the ultimate protection against all forms of psychological warfare, both obvious and hidden.